Dr. Valthari stared at the screen in front of her and blinked all three of her eyes in confusion. The genetic scanner had crashed again. This was the fourth time in 2 hours, and the equipment was new. She had tested it on 50 different species, just last week, without a single problem. The Kryn scientist tapped her clawed fingers against the console and ran the scan one more time. The sample came from one of the new species that had just joined the Galactic Union. Humans, they called themselves. Strange name for a strange species from a world called Earth. The scanner hummed to life. Data began flowing across the screen in neat columns of light. Valthari watched the information populate, a long neck craning forward as she read each line. Binocular vision with forward-facing eyes. Predator trait. High persistent stamina adapted for long-distance pursuit. Predator trait. Advanced social cooperation and empathy markers. Prey trait. Complex communication systems for group coordination. Prey trait. Omnivorous digestive system weighted toward meat consumption. Predator trait. Strong pair bonding and communal child-rearing instincts. Prey trait. The screen flickered. Then it went dark with a soft beep of failure. Valthari made a sound of frustration in her throat. She stood up from her station and walked across the medical research lab to the office of High Researcher Quindle. The door opened at her approach. "We have a problem," she said. Quindle looked up from his work. He was nearly twice Valthari's size, covered in dark scales that marked him as a member of the Krek species. Pure apex predator evolution. His yellow eyes focused on her with the intensity of a hunter. "What kind of problem?" he asked. "The genetic classification scanner keeps crashing when I try to process the human samples." Quindle rose from his desk. His movements were smooth and controlled, the way all predator species moved. "Show me." They walked back to Valthari's station together. She loaded a fresh sample and started the scan again. Quindle stood behind her, watching over her shoulder. The data began to appear. Forward-facing eyes. Predator. Persistence. Hunting genetics. Predator. Complex social structures. Prey. Advanced. Empathy markers. Prey. Territorial aggression patterns. Predator. Fear. Response and threat assessment. Prey. The screen flickered twice and died. "Interesting," Quindle said. His voice was deep and calm. "Run it again." Valthari did. The same pattern emerged. Contradictory markers lighting up across both prey and predator categories. The system tried to classify the species and failed. It could not decide. The scanner was designed to sort every known species into one category or the other. In 40,000 years of Galactic Union history, it had never failed. "The equipment must be damaged," Valthari said. "I will request a replacement." "Wait." Quindle leaned closer to the screen. "Look at the distribution. The markers are not blended. They are fully expressed. Both prey and predator traits at maximum values." Valthari looked again. He was right. Most species showed some minor markers from the opposite category. A prey species might have small amounts of territorial behavior. A predator species might show limited empathy for pack members. But humans showed full expression of both categories. "That is impossible," Valthari said. "Evolution does not work that way. A species becomes prey or predator, not both. Yet the data says otherwise." The door to the lab opened. A human walked in, wearing the blue uniform of the Cultural Exchange Program. His identification badge said Dr. Kevin Harris, physician. He was scheduled for his medical clearance examination. "Good morning," Kevin said with a smile. "Am I early?" Valthari studied him with new interest. He was average height for his species, with brown hair and eyes. His forward-facing eyes tracked both of them at once. Predator, vision. But his open expression and friendly tone suggested prey species social behavior. "Dr. Harris, Quindle said. Would you mind answering some questions about your species? Sure, Kevin said. He sat down in the chair next to the scanner. What do you want to know? Your genetic markers confuse our classification system, Valthari explained. We cannot determine if humans are prey or predator evolution. Kevin laughed. It was a short, pleasant sound. We are both, I guess. Earth is a competitive world. We had to develop lots of different survival strategies. Both? Quindle repeated. Please explain. Kevin thought for a moment. Wow, early humans were not the biggest or strongest animals on Earth. We were hunted by large predators. Big cats, wild dogs, bears. So we learned to work together in groups for safety. We developed communication and cooperation. Prey survival skills. And the predator traits? Valthari asked. We also needed to eat, Kevin said with a shrug. We could not outrun most prey animals. So we learned persistence hunting. We would chase animals for hours until they collapsed from exhaustion. We used tools and tactics. We became pack hunters. Predator skills. So you evolved both strategies simultaneously? Quindle's tail moved behind him, a sign of deep thought in his species. I suppose so, Kevin said. We call it adaptability. Earth has many different environments and many different threats. The humans who survived were the ones who could be social when needed and aggressive when necessary. We learned to switch between different behaviors based on the situation. Valthari exchanged a look with Quindle. In all their years of research, they had never encountered anything like this. Every known species had a clear evolutionary path. Prey species that survived through cooperation, camouflage, and avoidance. Predator species that survived through hunting, strength, and dominance. Humans apparently chose not to choose. This is unprecedented, Valthari said quietly. Kevin looked between them. Is that a problem? No, Quindle said slowly. It is simply unusual. The Galactic Union has never encountered a species with dual evolutionary classification. How do other species handle it? Kevin asked. The prey and predator thing? Most interactions between prey and predator species are managed through strict protocols, Valthari explained. Prey species focus on scientific and cultural development. Predator species handle military and security matters. The system has worked for 40,000 years. And where do humans fit? Neither of them had an answer. Kevin stood up from the chair. Well, if you need to run more tests to figure it out, I'm happy to help. But I should mention something. What is that? Quindle asked. Humans are not special, Kevin said. We just come from a world that did not give us the luxury of being only one thing. We had to be everything to survive. Careful and bold. Gentle and fierce. Cooperative and competitive. Maybe that makes us unusual here, but on Earth, it just made us human. He smiled again and headed for the door. Let me know when you want to schedule that medical clearance. After he left, Valthari and Quindle stood in silence. We need to study this further, Valthari finally said. Agreed, Quindle replied. I want behavioral tests. Psychological profiles. Combat assessments. If humans truly express both prey and predator traits at full strength, they could be either the most dangerous species in the Union or the most valuable. Or both, Valthari said softly. Quindle's predator eyes gleamed. Yes, both. They returned to the scanner and began preparing a comprehensive research proposal. Neither of them realized yet that understanding humanity's dual nature would soon become critical to the survival of the entire Galactic Union, but they would learn. Everyone would. Dr. Mirasol adjusted the neural monitoring equipment attached to the human volunteer sitting across from her. The insectoid psychologist had conducted thousands of behavioral assessments during her career, but she had never seen results quite like these. Are you comfortable, Helen? Marisol asked. Helen Park nodded. The human anthropologist had volunteered for the psychological testing program. She seemed relaxed, almost curious about the whole process. Very comfortable, Helen said. What kind of tests are we doing today? Standard threat response scenarios, Marisol explained. Her translator converted her clicking speech into words Helen could understand. I will present various situations. You simply react naturally. There are no wrong answers. Sounds easy enough. Marisol activated the first scenario. A holographic display showed a peaceful meadow. Suddenly, a large predator appeared in the distance, moving toward the viewer. Helen's response was immediate. Her heart rate increased. Her muscles tensed. Her eyes tracked the predator's movement with careful attention. Classic prey response. Fear recognition and threat assessment, exactly as expected. Marisol made notes and moved to the next scenario. This one showed a resource, food in this case, with another individual approaching it. Helen's posture shifted. Her breathing stayed calm, but her eyes narrowed slightly. She leaned forward just a bit. The monitoring equipment showed activation in the competitive centers of her brain. Predator response. Resource guarding and hierarchical positioning. Interesting. Marisol ran through 15 more scenarios. Each time, Helen displayed either prey cooperation traits or predator competitive traits. But unlike other species, she never showed confusion or conflict between the two. She switched smoothly from one mode to the other, based on the situation. How do you feel? Marisol asked when they finished. Fine, Helen said. Some of those scenarios were a bit stressful, but nothing too bad. Did you notice yourself changing responses between different situations? Helen thought about it. I guess so. When there was danger, I focused on avoiding it or getting help. When there was competition, I focused on winning. That is just normal, right? Normal for humans, perhaps. But Marisol had tested hundreds of species. Prey species stayed in prey mode even during competitive scenarios. Predator species stayed in predator mode even when facing threats. The behavioral patterns were stable. Humans switched between them like changing clothes. Across the station, Ryan Foster was teaching a combat training class to a mixed group of Union military personnel. The human instructor stood in the center of a practice ring, surrounded by a dozen alien soldiers. The key to effective combat is reading your opponent, Ryan said. You need to predict their next move based on their current position. Slith, the reptilian combat instructor, watched from the side of the room. His species had trained warriors for 10,000 years. He was curious to see what these newcomers could teach. Ryan split the group into teams. We are going to play a game humans call Capture the Flag. Each team protects their flag while trying to steal the other team's flag. You can tag opponents to send them to a holding area, but teammates can free you by tagging you back. The prey species in the room looked nervous. The predator species looked eager. Teams are mixed, Ryan announced. Prey and predator species working together. Now, everyone looked nervous. The game began. Immediately, the prey species clustered around their flag in a defensive formation. The predator species charged forward to attack. Ryan blew a whistle and stopped the exercise. Problem, he said. Prey team, you are playing defense only. Predator team, you are playing offense only. To win, you need both. He reorganized the teams with human members added to each side. The game started again. This time, the humans on the prey team led coordinated attacks while maintaining defensive coverage. The humans on the predator team set up protective formations while sending strike forces forward. Within minutes, the alien soldiers began copying the human tactics. Prey species discovered they could be aggressive when working together. Predator species discovered they could be protective when focused on a common goal. Slith moved closer to watch. He had never seen combat training like this. The humans flowed between offense and defense without hesitation. They cooperated like prey, but struck like predators. After an hour, Ryan called a break. The alien soldiers were exhausted but energized. They had learned more about tactical flexibility in one session than in months of traditional training. How do you do that? Slith asked Ryan directly. Your species switches between prey cooperation and predator aggression in seconds. It should create confusion, but you move smoothly. Ryan wiped sweat from his face with a towel. We do not think of it as switching. We think of it as using the right tool for the job. Sometimes you need teamwork. Sometimes you need individual action. Humans learn both from childhood. Your evolution must have been harsh, Slith observed. Earth did not give us many easy options, Ryan agreed. We developed every advantage we could find. Back in the research lab, Valthari and Quindle reviewed the data from both the psychological tests and combat training. Look at this pattern, Valthari said, pointing to a graph. Human test subjects show full prey response when protecting young or vulnerable individuals. But the moment the young are safe, they shift to full predator response against threats. Speed of transition is remarkable, Quindle added. Most species require minutes to shift behavioral modes. Humans do it in under a second. It is not instinct alone, Valthari said thoughtfully. They make conscious choices about which behavior to express. Watch this recording. She played back footage from the combat training. A human soldier was advancing in attack mode when he noticed a teammate fall. Immediately, he switched to protective mode, covering the fallen soldier while calling for support. Once help arrived, he switched back to attack mode and continued forward. He chose when to be predator and when to be prey, Quindle said quietly. Based on tactical need, not fear or instinct. Exactly. And look at the brain scans. When humans make these switches, there is no conflict, no stress response. The transition is natural. They watch more footage. Humans teaching prey species to be assertive. Humans teaching predator species to be cooperative. The aliens struggled with behaviors outside their evolutionary programming. The humans moved between both modes effortlessly. This could change everything we understand about evolution, Valthari said. Before Quindle could respond, an alarm sounded throughout the station. Emergency broadcasts lit up every screen. Attention, all personnel. Distress signal received from colony transport vessel Harmony's Light. Ship reports attack by hostile forces. Multiple species aboard including civilians and children. Union response protocols activating now. Valthari felt her prey instincts surge. Fear, concern for the innocent. Need to help but avoid danger. Quindle felt his predator instincts engage. Anger, territorial protection. Need to hunt the threat. They both looked at each other and then at the screen showing human locations on the station. I want to see how they respond to this, Quindle said. Request permission to observe the human ship's response. Valthari agreed that they sent the formal request through channels. It was approved within minutes. Everyone wanted to know what the newcomers would do in a real crisis. On the human ship Nightingale, Captain Daniel Price received a distress call and the Union's response protocols. His ship was the only human vessel in the sector. The protocols were clear. Predator species ships were assigned to combat response. Prey species ships were assigned to evacuation and medical support. The Nightingale did not fit either category. Sir, we are receiving contradictory orders, his communications officer said. The system does not know how to classify us. Daniel looked at the tactical display. The colony ship was 3 hours away at maximum speed. Union predator forces were 4 hours out. Union prey forces were 5 hours out. Ignore the protocols, Daniel said. Set course for the colony ship. Maximum speed. Sir, That exceeds safety recommendations for our engines. Engineers know what they are doing, Daniel replied. And those people do not have time for us to fly cautious. The Nightingale's engines roared to life, pushing past recommended limits. The ship leaped forward through space in the research lab. Velthari watched the human ship's trajectory. They are taking risks, she said, pushing their technology hard. They are also moving faster than any other response vessel, Quindle noted. They will arrive first. What will they do when they get there? Velthari wondered. Neither of them knew. But they were about to find out. On the Nightingale's bridge, Daniel Price studied the tactical situation. Hostile boarders on the colony ship, hostages, children among the captives. He felt something shift inside him. Something old and deep. Something that had made humans what they were. Prepare boarding teams, he ordered, and open communication channels with the hostiles. His crew did not question the dual command. They knew what it meant. They would talk like prey. They would fight like predators. They would be both. Because both was what the situation required. And when the Nightingale arrived at the crisis, the galaxy would see exactly what happened when evolution created a species that refused to be just one thing. The colony ship Harmony's light tumbled slowly through space, venting atmosphere from a dozen hull breaches. Emergency lights flickered across its damaged hull. Inside, chaos reigned. Captain Daniel Price watched the tactical display from the bridge of the Nightingale. His ship had arrived 40 minutes ahead of any other Union vessel. Now he had to decide how to use that time. Status report, he ordered. Lieutenant Angela Moore worked her console quickly. Colony ship is disabled. Main power is offline. Life support failing in 3 sections. Hostile vessels are 2 smaller raiders attached to the main airlock. Scans show approximately 30 attackers aboard and over 200 civilians. Civilian locations? Concentrated in the main cargo bay. Attackers are using them as shields. Children? Angela's voice tightened. Yes, sir. At least 40 children in the group. Daniel felt something cold settle in his chest. He had children of his own back on Earth. The thought of them in danger made his hands clench on the armrests of his command chair. Open a channel to the raiders, he said calmly. The main screen flickered. A reptilian face appeared, covered in dark scales and battle scars. Zector, commander of this Void Reaver pack, grinned with too many teeth. Another ship comes to die? Zector asked. This is Captain Daniel Price of the Nightingale. I am here to negotiate the release of your hostages. Zector laughed. It was a harsh, barking sound. Negotiate? You have nothing I want except your ship. Surrender it and maybe I let some of the prey species live. Counterproposal, Daniel said. His voice stayed even and reasonable. Release all civilians unharmed. We will allow you to leave without pursuit. Why would I do that? I have all the advantages here. Because if you do not, we will take the civilians by force. And unlike the civilians, we will shoot back. Zector leaned closer to his screen. You command 1 small ship. I have 30 warriors and 200 hostages. Your move, human. My move, Daniel agreed. Keep this channel open. You will want to see this. He switched to internal communications. Greg, are your teams ready? Greg Santos, the Nightingale's security chief, responded immediately. Ready, sir. We have breach points identified. Non-lethal preferred? Preferred, but not required. Priority 1 is civilian safety. Priority 2 is speed. Priority 3 is minimizing enemy casualties. In that order, understood. Daniel turned to his pilot. Angela, I need you to position us between the raiders and the colony ship. Make it look like we are setting up for a defensive position. Defensive, sir? Angela asked. That is what they will expect from a prey species, Daniel explained. We need them thinking wrong for as long as possible. The Nightingale moved into position. On the raider ship, Ziegler watched with satisfaction. Humans were playing it safe, just like prey always did. He turned his attention back to securing the cargo holds. He did not see the three small human shuttles detached from the Nightingale's lower bay. They were running silent, coasting on momentum toward the disabled colony ship. Greg Santos led the first boarding team through the emergency airlock. His team moved with smooth precision, each member covering angles and checking corners. They used hand signals instead of verbal communication, prey coordination. Silent and cooperative, they reached the first group of raiders guarding a corridor. Greg raised his weapon. It was set to stun. He did not want to kill unless necessary. Predator precision. Controlled violence. His team took down 6 raiders in under 10 seconds. The aliens barely had time to react before they collapsed unconscious. Team 1, first section secured, Greg whispered into his com. Advancing the cargo bay. 2 more teams were moving through other parts of the ship. Each followed the same pattern. Move quietly. Work together. Strike fast. Minimum force needed but no hesitation. In the main cargo bay, the civilians huddled together in terror. The Void Reavers had separated them into groups, using them as living shields. Children were kept in the center, surrounded by adults from a dozen different species. A young girl, barely 6 years old and covered in soft blue fur, whimpered quietly. Her mother, a prey species from the Delta system, held her close and tried to keep her calm. Quiet, snarled the Void Reaver guard standing near them. Or I make you quiet. The Deltan mother pulled her daughter closer, eyes wide with fear. The cargo bay doors exploded inward. 3 human teams poured through simultaneously from different entry points. Their movements were coordinated like a single organism. Each team knew exactly where the others were without looking. Prey pack behavior, but their actions were pure predator. They fired with precision, each shot taking down a raider. No wasted ammunition. No missed targets. In 30 seconds, 15 Void Reavers were unconscious on the floor. The remaining raiders tried to use hostages as shields. They grabbed the nearest civilians and pressed weapons to their heads. Stay back or they die. One raider shouted. Greg Santos assessed the situation in an instant. His teams had clear shots on 3 of the 5 remaining raiders. The other 2 were behind cover with hostages. Hold fire, he ordered his teams. Then he raised his voice. Let the civilians go. You are surrounded, and your commander knows it. This does not have to end with anyone dying. You will not shoot, the lead raider said. Not with prey species in the way. You're right, Greg admitted. We will not risk civilian casualties. So here is what happens next. You can release them, and we take you alive. Or you can keep threatening them, and we wait exactly 90 seconds until the rest of our forces arrive. Then this gets much worse for you. The raider hesitated. He had fought prey species before. They always negotiated. They always backed down when hostages were threatened. It was instinct for them, but something in the human's eyes told him these were not normal prey species. Your commander Ziegler is watching this, Greg continued. You know he is. You know he is calculating whether you are worth the fight. Do not make him decide you are not worth saving. The psychology was perfect. Predator species valued strength. They abandoned weakness. The raider knew that if he showed fear or failure, his own commander might leave him behind. His weapon lowered slightly. Good choice, Greg said. Put the weapon down and step away from the civilians. 4 of the 5 raiders complied. The 5th, younger and more aggressive, tightened his grip on a Deltan female. I am not going to prison, he snarled. Greg moved faster than the raider expected. He crossed the distance in 3 strides, knocked the weapon away with one hand, and pulled the hostage clear with the other. Before the raider could react, 2 more humans had him restrained on the ground. The entire action took less than 5 seconds. Greg turned to the civilians. "Everyone stay calm. We are evacuating you to our ship. Follow my people and move quickly, but do not run. We have you." The relief in the cargo bay was immediate. Parents grabbed children. People helped injured neighbors. The human teams organized them into groups and started moving them toward the exit. The young Delton girl looked up at Greg with huge eyes. "Are you the good predators?" she asked. Greg smiled despite the tension. "We are humans. We are whatever we need to be." On the raider ship, Ziegler watched his hostages being rescued on the security feed. Rage burned through him. These humans had moved like prey, but fought like predators. They had negotiated while simultaneously attacking. They had shown mercy while demonstrating overwhelming force. It was wrong. Species were supposed to be one thing or the other, not both. "Commander," one of his crew said nervously. "Should we retreat?" "No," Ziegler growled. "I want to see what these humans really are. Prepare boarding parties." We attacked their ship directly. On the Nightingale, Daniel watched the evacuation proceed smoothly. The civilians were being transferred quickly to his ship's cargo bays where medical teams waited. "Sir," Angela called from her station. "The raider ships are detaching from the colony vessel. They are moving toward us." "Let them come," Daniel said. "Once the last civilian is aboard, prepare for combat." The evacuation finished 3 minutes later. The final human team sprinted back through the airlock and sealed it behind them. "All civilians secure," Greg reported. "We are ready." Daniel opened the channel to Ziegler again. "Your hostages are safe. You can leave now. Last chance." "I think not," Ziegler replied. "I want your ship. And I want to know how you die, human." The raider vessels opened fire. Energy weapons splashed against the Nightingale's shields. Daniel's expression did not change. "Angela, evasive pattern Delta. Greg, target their weapon systems. Disable if possible." The Nightingale spun through space, dodging most of the incoming fire. Its return shots were precise, calculated to damage rather than destroy. Within 2 minutes, both raider ships had lost weapons capability. "They are trying to ram us," Angela reported. "Let them try," Daniel said. "Match their course and speed. Put us nose to nose with Ziegler's ship." The 2 vessels close to within 50 meters. Daniel could see Ziegler on the screen, fury in his eyes. "You fight like prey," Ziegler accused. "Defensive, cautious, weak." "We fight to protect people," Daniel corrected. "That is not weakness. That is purpose. Then face me directly, human. If you have any predator courage at all." Daniel smiled. It was not a kind expression. "If you insist." He turned off the comm and looked at Greg. "Prepare boarding teams." "We are going over there." "Sir?" Greg asked. "He wants to see what humans really are," Daniel said. "Let us show him." The Nightingale. The Galactic Council chamber was shaped like a massive amphitheater, with seats arranged in concentric circles around a central platform. Representatives from 300 species filled the space, their voices creating a constant buzz of conversation in 100 different languages. Council Prime Teshva called the emergency session to order. Their species, the Velen, were classic prey evolution. Large eyes for detecting threats, powerful legs for running, gentle nature, and strong social bonds. She had led the council for 20 years through patience and diplomacy. "Members of the council," she began, her voice amplified through the chamber. "We gathered to discuss a matter of unprecedented importance. The recent incident with the colony. Ship has raised questions about our newest members, Dr. Volthari, and High Researcher Quindle will present their findings on human genetic classification. Volthari approached the central platform. Behind her, holographic displays activated, showing genetic data and behavioral analysis. Members of the council, she said, humans cannot be classified as either prey or predator species. They are demonstrably both, with full expression of traits from each category. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Several prey species representatives looked concerned. A few predator species representatives looked interested. Impossible, called out Representative Crix, a predator species with sharp teeth and aggressive posture. Evolution does not permit such contradictions. A species becomes specialized or it dies. Normally correct, Quindle said, joining Volthari on the platform. But Earth was not a normal evolutionary environment. It had extreme diversity and competition. Humans faced threats from both large predators and other human groups. They needed every advantage. The display showed footage from the Nightingale rescue operation. Council members watched as human teams moved with prey-like coordination, but predator-like precision. They saw humans negotiate peacefully while preparing for combat. They saw the speed with which humans switched from protecting civilians to neutralizing threats. This is concerning, Representative Shemva said. She was prey species with soft fur and gentle eyes. A species that can be both cooperative and aggressive is unpredictable. How do we know when they will be peaceful and when they will be violent? Ambassador Paul Chun stood from the human delegation section. He was middle-aged, with graying hair and calm eyes. He had been a diplomat for 30 years back on Earth before being selected for the Galactic Union posting. May I address the council? He asked. Tesh single quotes VA gestured her approval. Paul walked to the central platform. I understand your concerns, he began. You have built a society based on clear roles. Prey species handle certain tasks. Predator species handle others. Humans do not fit that model. Exactly our concern, Crick said. Where do you fit? Everywhere, Paul replied simply. And nowhere. We do not have instincts that lock us into one behavior pattern. We have the capacity for both cooperation and competition. But we also have something else. What is that? Teshva asked. Choice, Paul said. Humans choose which traits to express based on ethics, not just instinct. We can be gentle because we value kindness. We can be fierce because we value justice. The situation does not control us. Our values do. Dr. Susan Miles, a human neuroscientist, joined Paul on the platform. If I may add context, she said. Human brains developed advanced prefrontal cortex functions specifically to manage our dual instincts. We literally evolved the ability to think about our own thinking, to override instinct with reason. She activated a neural scan showing human brain activity. When a human sees a threat to a child, both prey and predator responses activate simultaneously. Prey response says protect and run. Predator response says attack and eliminate threat. The prefrontal cortex integrates both. The result is protective aggression. Fight to defend, not to conquer. Fascinating, Quindle murmured. War Marshal Kronanek rose from his seat. He was massive, covered in thick armor plating, with claws that could tear through metal. His species had dominated their region of space for 5,000 years before joining the Union. I have a question for the humans, Kronanek said. His voice was deep and powerful. You claim you choose when to be peaceful and when to be violent. But every species claims this. What makes you different? Paul met his gaze directly. We have been both victim and victimizer in our own history. We know what it means to be hunted and to be hunter. We know what it feels like to be afraid and to inspire fear. That knowledge teaches us responsibility. Pretty words, Kronanek replied. But I see a species that could be the most dangerous predator in the galaxy. You hide your strength behind cooperation until the moment to strike. That is not honor. That is deception. With respect, War Marshal, Susan interjected, you are applying predator psychology to a non-predator species. Predators see cooperation as weakness and aggression as strength. Humans see both as tools. Neither is superior. Both have their place. Before Chrononic could respond, Teshva raised her hand for silence. This debate could continue indefinitely, but I wish to address the practical matter. Humans do not fit our classification system. This creates legal and organizational problems. How do we determine their rights and responsibilities in the Union? Create a new classification, Representative Erin suggested. She was prey species, known for administrative expertise. Adaptive species or dual evolution species. That solves nothing, Crix argued. Classifications exist to define roles. What role do humans serve? Maybe that is the wrong question, Velthari said quietly. All attention turned to her. Perhaps we should not ask what role humans serve, but what role we need them to serve. Explain, Teshva prompted. Velthari took a breath. The Galactic Union has existed for 40,000 years. In that time, we have had continual conflict between prey and predator species. Not wars, thanks to our laws and protocols, but constant disagreement. Prey species want expansion through diplomacy. Predator species want expansion through strength. We compromise, but neither side truly understands the other. This is known, Teshva acknowledged. What is your point? Humans understand both sides, Quingle said, catching on to Velthari's reasoning. They have prey empathy and predator determination. They could bridge the gap. You suggest using humans as mediators? Chrononic asked skeptically. I suggest, Velthari said carefully, that a species which must balance opposing instincts might help other species find balance. Paul listened to this with mixed feelings. It made sense from their perspective. But it also felt like asking humans to solve problems the galaxy had failed to solve for 40 millennia. Before he could respond, alarm klaxons sounded throughout the council chamber. Emergency lights activated. Every representative's personal communicator buzzed with urgent alerts. Teshva accessed the incoming data. Her gentle features showed shock. We have reports from our outer monitoring stations. A massive fleet of unknown origin has entered Union space. Tactical displays lit up around the chamber. The imagery showed hundreds of ships, all identical in design, moving in perfect formation. Attempting communication, the Council's communication officer reported. No response to standard greetings. One of the monitoring stations transmitted visual contact. The ships were dark, angular, and completely featureless. No markings. No lights except for propulsion dot. Then the ships opened fire on the monitoring station. The feed cut to static. The council chamber erupted in noise. Prey species called for immediate defensive positions. Predator species demanded military response. Everyone talked over everyone else. Teshva tried to restore order, but the panic was spreading. Paul-chan looked at the tactical display. The enemy fleet was moving with purpose and coordination. Their formation was perfect. Their target selection was ruthless. They destroyed military outposts first, then communication relays. Classic predator attack pattern. Eliminate threats, cut off escape routes, then close in for the kill. But their numbers and coordination suggested hive mind behavior. Prey species cooperation taken to an extreme. Both, Paul whispered. They're both too. Susan heard him. What? Look at their tactics. Perfect coordination like prey species. Ruthless efficiency like predator species. They are not fighting like a single type of species. Susan studied the data. Her eyes widened. You are right. They show characteristics of both. But there is no individual initiative, no variation in behavior. It is like they are following a single strategy perfectly. Cronanak's voice boomed across the chamber. We must respond with full military force. Every predator species warship to the front lines. No, Teshva countered. We must protect civilian populations first. Every prey species vessel to evacuation duty. The old argument began again. Predator representatives wanted to attack. Prey representatives wanted to protect. The debate grew louder and more heated. Paul watched the enemy fleet advance on the displays. They moved with unstoppable momentum. The Union was dividing itself between offense and defense, playing to each species' strength. But the enemy clearly expected that. He turned to Susan. They know how the Union operates. They know prey species will evacuate and predator species will attack. They are counting on that division. So what do? Paul looked at the council, still arguing. Then he looked at the human delegation. All of them were watching him, waiting for guidance. We do what? Admiral Carl Jensen stood on the bridge of the human flagship Defender, watching the tactical display with cold calculation. The enemy fleet numbered in the thousands. The combined Union forces totaled maybe half that number, but numbers were not everything. Status report. Carl ordered. Commander Diana Lopez worked her console with quick efficiency. All Union vessels responding to human command structure. Predator species ships are checking in. Prey species ships are ready. They are waiting for orders, sir. Carl studied the force composition. Predator species had powerful weapons and aggressive tactics. Prey species had superior sensors and coordination systems. Normally they operated independently, each playing to their strengths. That ended today. Open fleet-wide channel, Carl said. Diana activated the communication system. Every ship in the Union defensive fleet received the signal. This is Admiral Jensen to all Union forces. I know this situation is unusual. Humans are new to the galaxy, and now we are asking you to trust us with your lives. So let me be direct. The enemy coming at us is not like anything you have faced before. They combine prey cooperation with predator aggression. They expect you to divide along traditional lines. We are not going to do that. He paused, making sure everyone was listening. Predator species, you are used to frontal assault. Prey species, you are used to defensive support. Today, we do both. Together. We are going to show this enemy what happens when the galaxy stops thinking in categories and starts thinking in tactics. Carl pulled up the battle plan. It appeared on every ship's display. Phase 1 is defensive. Prey species ships take the front line with predator species ships providing cover. Yes, you heard that correctly. Prey in front. Predator behind. Your sensors and coordination are superior. You will give us the intelligence we need. There was a moment of shocked silence across the fleet. Then, acknowledgments began coming in. Prey species commanders sounded nervous but willing. Predator species commanders sounded confused but ready. Phase 2 is offensive. Once the enemy commits to breaking our defensive line, predator species will punch through their formation. But you will not go alone. Prey species will coordinate your attack vectors and cover your flanks. You supply the strength. They supply the strategy. More acknowledgments. The plan was forming. Remember, Carl continued, the enemy thinks they know how we fight. They think prey runs and predator charges. They think we cannot work together. Let us teach them why assumptions are dangerous. He closed the channel and looked at Diana. How long until contact? 12 minutes, sir. Signal all ships. Begin Phase 1 deployment. The Union fleet rearranged itself. Prey species vessels moved to the forward positions. their advanced sensors scanning the approaching enemy. Predator species ships formed a protective second line, weapons powered and ready. On the bridge of a prey species science vessel, Captain Felrin tried to control his instincts. Every evolutionary impulse in his body screamed at him to run. His ship was in the front line, directly in the path of the enemy fleet. But behind him, 3 Predator species warships held position. Their weapons were aimed forward, ready to support him. For the first time in his career, Felrin felt protected by predators instead of threatened by them. "All sensors to maximum," he ordered his crew. "We are the eyes of this fleet. Do not fail them." His crew worked their stations with grim determination. They were prey, yes, but they were also Union members. And today, the Union needed them to be brave. The enemy fleet entered firing range. "Enemy vessels opening fire," Diana reported. "Prey ships, evasive maneuvers, but hold formation," Carl ordered. "Predator ships, return fire on my mark." The prey species ships danced through space, their superior maneuverability letting them dodge most of the incoming fire. The shots they could not avoid, they absorbed on shields while transmitting detailed tactical data to the ships behind them. "Enemy firing patterns analyzed," Felrin transmitted. "Sending targeting solutions now." "Mark," Carl said calmly. The Predator species ships unleashed a coordinated barrage. Their weapons fire, guided by the prey species targeting data, was devastatingly accurate. Dozens of enemy ships exploded in the first volley. The enemy fleet faltered, surprised by the effectiveness of the counterattack. "They are confused," Diana observed. "Their formation is breaking." "Phase 2, Carl ordered. Predator ships advance on transmitted vectors. Prey ships maintain coordination support." The Predator species warships surged forward, but not in their traditional aggressive rush. They moved in coordinated groups, each supporting the others. Prey species ships stayed with them, their sensors feeding constant updates on enemy positions and weak points. It was beautiful to watch. Strength and intelligence working together seamlessly on one of the Predator warships. Commander Vesseral felt something he had never experienced in combat before. Confidence built on trust. His prey species partners were telling him where to strike and when to defend. His instincts wanted to ignore them and attack everything. But the human battle plan made sense, and it was working. "Target the formation's center weak point," his prey species coordinator transmitted. 3 ships, coordinates following. Vesseral followed the guidance. His weapons found their mark perfectly. The enemy formation collapsed inward. "Confirmed kill." "Excellent coordination." He transmitted back. It was the first time he had ever complimented a prey species in combat. In the enemy fleet. The Hive Mind Collective analyzed the battle with growing confusion. Its programming accounted for every known species behavior. Prey defended and fled. Predators attacked and dominated. These patterns had held true across dozens of conquered galaxies. But this fleet was different. Prey ships in aggressive positions. Predator ships in supportive roles. Perfect coordination between natural enemies. The collective had no response protocol for this situation. It did what any program does when encountering undefined variables. It requested clarification. "Attention unknown vessels," the hive mind transmitted. "Identify species classification for tactical assessment. Genetic scans show conflicting data. Are you prey or predator evolution?" On the Defender, Lieutenant Peter Kim looked at Admiral Jensen. "Sir, they are asking about our species classification." Carl smiled. It was not a warm expression. "Tell them the truth." Peter opened a return channel. "This is the Galactic Union Combined Fleet. You asked for our classification. The answer is both. We are both. Prey and predator. Cooperation and strength. Defense and offense. And we are all of these things because humanity taught us we do not have to choose. Clarification required, the hive mind responded. Species cannot be both classifications. This violates evolutionary logic. Then learn something new, Carl transmitted directly. Humans are both. Always both. And now the rest of us are too. Any other questions? The hive mind collective processed this information. Its entire strategic framework was built on species specialization. Prey species had weaknesses that could be exploited through aggression. Predator species had weaknesses that could be exploited through numbers and coordination. Species that were both had no such weaknesses. The collective made a calculation. Victory probability dropped below acceptable thresholds. Resource expenditure exceeded projected value. The logical choice was withdrawal. This combat engagement is terminated, the hive mind transmitted. We withdraw from Union space. Your dual nature species presents undefined strategic challenges. Further analysis required before engagement. The enemy fleet turned and retreated at maximum speed. On the defender's bridge, the crew erupted in cheers. Diana looked at Carl with wide eyes. Sir, they are running. They are adapting, Carl corrected. They learned that assumptions are dangerous. Let them tell that lesson to whatever galaxy they come from next. He opened the fleet-wide channel again. All Union forces, stand down from combat alert. Maintain defensive positions until the enemy is confirmed outside our territory. And to every ship in this fleet, thank you. You trusted a new species with an untested strategy. You worked together across evolutionary differences. You proved that the galaxy is stronger united than divided. Acknowledgements flooded in from hundreds of ships. Prey and predator species alike celebrating together. 1 week later, the Galactic Council convened again. The chamber was calmer now. The detention of recent events still lingered. Teshva stood at the central platform. The Council recognizes humanity's contribution to Union defense. The question remains, how do we classify them? Paul Chan rose from his seat. If I may, Council Prime, I would like to propose that you do not. Explain. Classifications serve a purpose, Paul said. They help organize responsibilities and define roles. But they also create limits. Prey species are told they cannot be aggressive. Predator species are told they cannot be cooperative. These limits almost cost us everything. He gestured to the assembled representatives. Humans are both prey and predator. But we believe every species has the capacity for both. You have just proven it. Prey species fought on the front lines. Predator species provided support and coordination. You all did what the situation required, not what your evolution dictated. Cronach stood. You suggest we abandon the classification system entirely? I suggest, Paul replied carefully, that you recognize it as a description, not a limitation. Humans did not teach you to be something you are not. We taught you